On a misty autumn evening in New Orleans, Isabella Rivera, barely 28 and weathered by life's unrelenting struggles, rushed down the slick cobblestone streets with her threadbare umbrella barely holding back the pelting rain. She clutched it tightly as she navigated through a throng of fellow commuters, her worn sneakers splashing in shallow puddles beneath the flickering street lamps. Her shift at the Azur Bistro was set to begin in less than 10 minutes, and the weight of her responsibilities pressed heavily on her shoulders. At that very moment, as fate would have it, a sleek, midnight blue luxury sedan pulled up curbside, and from it emerged Ethan Sullivan, now 32, a man whose presence exuded both effortless charm and the quiet confidence of one who had tasted success. Dressed in a meticulously tailored suit and polished shoes that glistened even under the rain's assault, Ethan appeared almost out of place amidst the urban chaos. He glanced at his designer watch with a trace of irritation, clearly unaccustomed to delays in his punctual world. Their collision was as sudden as it was unintentional. Isabella, lost in her racing thoughts of making it to work on time, rounded a corner, only to collide headlong with Ethan. Her umbrella slipped from her grasp, its metallic ribs clanging against the wet pavement. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she blurted, immediately kneeling to recover the umbrella. "I wasn't paying attention." Ethan, momentarily bracing himself, quickly steadied his posture. Any irritation in his eyes melted into astonishment when he recognized the familiar face before him. "Isabella?" he murmured, as if the very sound of her name carried echoes of a distant past. For a suspended moment, time seemed to slow. The relentless rain, the busy street, even the murmur of the city itself faded into insignificance as childhood memories cascaded through his mind. Isabella, her brow furrowing in confusion, looked up at him. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" she asked softly, her voice laced with uncertainty. "It's me, Ethan. Ethan Sullivan," he replied in a tone that was both warm and tinged with nostalgia. His voice resonated with a familiarity that tugged at her memory. "From New Orleans. From when we used to race through the alleys on our bikes," he continued, his words like whispered secrets from another life. Isabella's eyes widened in disbelief as fragments of long-forgotten days, of sunlit afternoons spent playing hide-and-seek in narrow laneways, of shared dreams beneath a sprawling magnolia tree, came flooding back. "But you moved away so many years ago," she whispered, her voice trembling between wonder and hesitation. "It wasn't 15 years, it's been closer to 17, Ethan replied with a gentle smile, his expression softening as the rain blurred the bustling city behind them. "I can't believe it's really you." "You haven't changed a bit," he said, a glimmer of incredulity mingling with affection. Isabella managed a nervous laugh, tucking a damp strand of hair behind her ear. "Well, I suppose that makes one of us," she teased lightly, though her voice hinted at the gravity of the encounter. Before they could linger further, the shrill ring of Isabella's phone abruptly shattered the fragile spell. Fumbling to silence the alarm, she sighed, I really have to go. I'm already late for work." Ethan hesitated, reluctant to let this unexpected reunion slip away. "Where do you work? Maybe I could drop by sometime," he offered with genuine warmth. With a polite, wistful smile, Isabella pointed down the street toward a modest, warmly lit establishment. "Via Bistro," she explained. "It's just a few blocks away." As she turned to leave, she paused and cast one last longing glance back at him. "It was really nice seeing you again, Ethan." "Likewise, Isabella," he murmured, watching as she melted into the crowd of umbrellas and hurried souls. Standing there in the rain, Ethan felt an unfamiliar stirring within, a blend of nostalgia, longing, and regret. He murmured softly to himself, "I never thought I'd see you again," as a faint smile graced his lips. Though the rain continued its relentless descent, for Ethan, the world felt inexplicably brighter now. Sliding back into his car, he silently vowed to find a way to reconnect with the girl who once meant everything to him. Later that evening, amid the hum of clinking dishes and the soft strains of vintage jazz playing in the background, Isabella balanced a tray of steaming coffee cups while scribbling orders onto her notepad at the Azur Bistro. The bistro, with its intimate atmosphere and humble decor, had become a small haven for those seeking respite from the hardships of daily life. As she moved gracefully among the tables, She tried to shake off the memory of that rain-soaked encounter. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner booth near the window, Ethan Sullivan had taken up his habitual seat. Over the past week he had become a regular, always ordering something simple, a hot coffee, a modest sandwich, or a slice of pie, to savor the small pleasures of this modest establishment. Today, however, he chose a stack of fluffy pancakes, a dish that somehow evoked memories of simpler times. When Isabella approached his table with the steaming plate, she offered him a gentle smile, her customary guarded demeanor softening ever so slightly. "You're starting to become a regular, aren't you?" she remarked, with a playful glimmer in her eyes. Ethan's smile broadened as he replied, "Perhaps it's the pancakes. Or maybe it's the company." Isabella rolled her eyes good-naturedly and laughed, her tone carrying both warmth and self-deprecation. "Well, if it's the company, I expect good tips in return," she quipped as she set down his plate, tucking the tray under her arm with practiced ease. "How are they today?" she asked during a brief moment of respite. "Perfect, thanks to you," Ethan replied, though he hadn't even taken a bite yet. "You were the one who recommended these, so I'm in your capable hands," he added, leaning back as if to savor not just the meal, but also the moment of rare calm between them. As their conversation meandered from nostalgic reminiscences of childhood bike rides and laughter-filled afternoons under the old magnolia tree, to lighter topics like favorite flavors and quirky habits, Isabella's laughter occasionally gave way to wistful sighs. When Ethan teased her about her once-abandoned passion for sketching, she brushed off his gentle prodding with a shy smile. "I haven't picked up a pencil in years," she confessed softly. "Life. It got in the way." Ethan's heart sank at the thought of her forsaking a talent that had once illuminated her very soul. "You were always so gifted," he murmured, his voice laden with regret and admiration. "I truly believe you could have soared if you'd allowed yourself the chance." Though Isabella's smile turned bittersweet, she only offered a quiet shrug. "Dreams have a way of fading under reality's harsh light," she said, her eyes briefly darkening as a familiar melancholy took hold. Later, as the Azure Bistro began to wind down for the night, Isabella's exhaustion became ever more apparent. While attending to another table, she overheard a hushed conversation between colleagues about overdue bills and mounting debts. Each word a painful reminder of the life she was forced to lead. One of her co-workers lamented, "She works double shifts, yet it's never enough." Isabella's shoulders tightened imperceptibly as she hurried to complete her tasks. And the spark of their childhood connection, though rekindled for a fleeting moment, was quickly overshadowed by the burdens of everyday survival. That same night, after closing up the bistro, Isabella stepped out into the heavy rain. The droplets blurred the neon signs and transformed the familiar streets into a hazy montage of light and shadow. As she hurried home, her thoughts were a jumbled mix of hope and despair. The unexpected encounter with Ethan had stirred long-dormant feelings, only to be eclipsed by the stark reality of her financial struggles. Alone beneath the awning of a closed storefront, she allowed herself a rare moment of vulnerability. "How could I have been so blind?" she whispered into the downpour, tears mingling with the raindrops on her cheeks. In the days that followed, Ethan's mind remained captive to the image of Isabella's apologetic eyes and the bittersweet taste of rekindled memories. Despite the polished veneer of his daily life and the weight of his own carefully guarded secrets, he found himself longing for a second chance. A chance to bridge the chasm that time and circumstance had wrought between them. Every morning, as he sat in his high-rise office overlooking the bustling streets of New Orleans, his thoughts would inevitably drift to that rainy afternoon. The memory of Isabella's sincere smile haunted him, a constant reminder of a past he yearned to reclaim. Determined to make amends for the years lost, he began to formulate a plan. A delicate, heartfelt strategy to reconnect with the woman who had once illuminated his childhood. One crisp evening, as the Azure Bistro hummed with the familiar sounds of clinking cups and murmuring patrons, Ethan resolved to step beyond the confines of his self-imposed distance. He took the initiative to leave small, thoughtful gestures in Isabella's usual section. A handwritten note tucked under her service tray, an extra portion of her favorite sweet pastry, a discreet envelope containing just enough to cover a minor expense that might ease her daily struggles. Each time she discovered these tokens, a flicker of both gratitude and perplexity shone in her eyes. Who could be doing this? She would wonder silently, her thoughts a mix of hope and cautious suspicion. Despite the comfort these gestures offered, they were never enough to dispel the underlying tension that had grown ever since that fateful reunion. One late night, as Isabella was closing up the bistro, she paused by the counter and listened as a quiet conversation between herself and a co-worker unfolded. "The rent is due next week, and I still need to send money to help my brother with his college tuition," she admitted in a low, resigned tone. The co-worker offered a sympathetic look. "Working double shifts does help, right?" she suggested gently. Isabella sighed, the weight of her responsibilities pressing in. "It's still not enough, but I'll manage somehow," she replied, her voice laced with determination and fatigue. Meanwhile, Ethan, hidden behind the veil of anonymity, had been tracking these struggles with a heavy heart. His own past was marred by the hardships of growing up with little, and the thought of Isabella enduring such difficulties stirred a deep-seated empathy within him. As time wore on, the initial spark of their renewed acquaintance began to evolve into something deeper and more complex. One evening, as the bistro grew quiet and the clamor of the day slowly faded into silence, Isabella approached Ethan's table for what appeared to be the final check. In a hesitant tone, he asked, "Do you ever wonder what might have been if we hadn't lost touch?" The question, spoken with a mixture of curiosity and sorrow, hung in the air. Isabella's expression softened as she replied, "Sometimes, yes, but life has a way of pulling us in different directions, doesn't it?" Ethan nodded solemnly, his gaze locked onto hers as though trying to capture every detail of her familiar features. "Yet, sometimes it also brings us back together, if only for a fleeting moment," he added quietly, the noise of the bistro fading into an intimate silence that enveloped them both. Days turned into weeks, and the two continued to exchange glances and brief conversations that were laden with unspoken memories and the hope of something more. Their interactions, though punctuated by the routine bustle of the bistro, began to reveal the contours of a relationship that was part past, part present, and wholly transformative. It was during one particularly somber evening that a chance encounter at the bistro's entrance forced Isabella to confront the reality of Ethan's hidden life. As she was finishing her shift, a well-dressed man approached the door with an enthusiastic greeting. "Ethan Sullivan, what a surprise to see you here," the man exclaimed jovially, clapping Ethan on the shoulder. The stranger's bright smile, however, did nothing to mask the tension that suddenly gripped Isabella's heart as he turned to her. "And who might this lovely lady be?" he asked, in a tone that brimmed with professional pride. Ethan's eyes darted anxiously between Isabella and the man, whose hand extended in a cordial greeting. "This is Isabella Rivera," he introduced, his voice carrying an undercurrent of reluctance. "We go way back." The man's smile widened as he remarked, "I didn't realize you'd bring a date to celebrate your latest business acquisition. I'm Richard Martin, CEO of Martin Enterprises." In that moment, the layers of deception began to unravel before Isabella's eyes. The revelation that Ethan's life was not as humble as it had seemed was a bitter pill to swallow. "A tech mogul?" Isabella's voice trembled with incredulity. "You never once mentioned that you were a millionaire?" Her eyes, once filled with tentative warmth, now blazed with hurt and betrayal. Ethan rose swiftly, his tone pleading as he attempted to explain. "Isabella, please understand. I didn't hide my success to deceive you. I was terrified that if you knew who I truly was, you'd see me differently. I wanted you to love me for who I am, not for what I have." But Isabella, her heart aching with the sting of the revelation, shook her head bitterly. "Do you have any idea what it's like to struggle every day, to work 2 jobs just to keep afloat, while you live in a world of unbridled luxury?" she snapped, her voice rising in a mixture of anger and sorrow. Without another word, she snatched her bag and strode toward the exit, leaving Ethan's desperate calls echoing behind her. In the aftermath of that explosive moment, Ethan sank into a deep well of regret. The upscale surroundings of the bistro, once a haven of gentle recollections, now felt cold and suffocating as the reality of his deception bore down upon him. Outside, Isabella stood beneath a flickering street lamp, the rain intensifying around her as tears blurred her vision. "How could I have been so blind?" she murmured, her voice trembling with a mix of heartbreak and anger. She hailed a cab, and as the vehicle merged into the night, she stole one last glance back at the bistro, at the figure of Ethan, watching her depart through a window with a gaze filled with sorrow and longing. In the days that followed, Ethan's world became a swirl of regret and quiet desperation. He couldn't shake the memory of Isabella's anguished eyes or the bitter taste of her words. Determined to make amends without imposing further on her fragile world, he began sending heartfelt apologies through discreet channels. Anonymous letters, small tokens of support left on her table at the bistro, even an occasional payment to cover a pressing bill, each accompanied by a handwritten note that read, "You've carried this burden alone for far too long." When Isabella discovered these gestures, her heart was torn between gratitude and indignation. The kindness, though touching, felt like an intrusion into the very fabric of her hard-won independence. How can someone just step into my life uninvited, even with good intentions, she wondered bitterly, the conflicting emotions warring within her. Yet, even as Isabella tried to bury the resurgence of old feelings under layers of work and practicality, the bond they once shared could not be so easily dismissed. One rainy evening, after a particularly grueling double shift, Isabella found herself alone in her modest apartment. The room was dimly lit by a single lamp, the sound of the rain tapping steadily against the window pane. A battered envelope, adorned with a simple handwritten note, lay on the coffee table. With trembling hands, she opened it to reveal a short, heartfelt message from Ethan. "Isabella, you once told me that life has a way of pulling people apart, but I believe it can also bring them back together. I've made mistakes that I'll regret forever, but never will I regret finding you again. Please, let me show you that I can make things right." The note, though simple in its construction, stirred a deep, conflicted ache in her heart. For a long moment, Isabella sat in silence, tears glistening in her eyes as she folded the letter, torn between the urge to forgive and the fear of being hurt once more. In the weeks that followed, Isabella's feelings vacillated wildly between the bitterness of betrayal and the faint hope of reconciliation. Her co-workers, ever sympathetic, urged her to give Ethan another chance, remarking that perhaps the man she once loved was still there, hidden behind layers of secrets and pain. "The good ones never are," one of them would say softly during a quiet break, "but sometimes it's worth taking a leap of faith." Meanwhile, Ethan grappled with his own internal demons, regret, fear, and the realization that his attempts at mending the past might have only driven her further away. The memory of their childhood, of afternoons spent chasing fireflies in the old quarter of New Orleans, of whispered promises made under starlight, lingered like a faded photograph in his mind. Determined to bridge the widening gap between them, he decided that words alone were insufficient. He needed to show her through actions that he could be the man she once believed him to be. One cool evening, as Isabella was walking home after her shift, she noticed a figure standing beneath a solitary street lamp near her building. Her steps faltered as she recognized the familiar outline of Ethan. His eyes, laden with a mixture of hope and hesitation, met hers from across the rain-soaked pavement. "Isabella," he called softly, his voice tentative yet earnest. For a moment she considered turning away, but something in the look on his face compelled her to slow down. "Can we talk?" he asked, his tone imploring, as if every word held the weight of their shared past. She hesitated, arms crossed and heart pounding, before finally nodding. "What are you doing here, Ethan? After everything—" Her voice trailed off, a myriad of emotions swirling behind her eyes. Ethan took a careful step forward, his tone low and contrite. "I couldn't stay away," he admitted, "not after realizing how much I've hurt you by keeping my true self hidden." His confession hung in the cool night air, charged with raw vulnerability. "I never meant to deceive you," he continued, his eyes pleading for understanding. "I was scared. Scared of losing the one person who saw me for who I truly was." Isabella's eyes searched his face, trying to reconcile the boy of their youth with the man before her. "Do you have any idea how humiliating it felt to learn that I'd been speaking with someone who could buy the very bistro I work at without a second thought?" she asked, her voice quivering with a blend of hurt and incredulity. "It's not about the money, Ethan. I'm angry because you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth from the start." For a long moment, neither spoke as the rain whispered around them. Finally, Ethan reached into his pocket and produced a small, unadorned envelope. "If nothing else, please accept this," he said softly. "It's not about wealth, it's about a promise. Whenever you're ready, let me help you carry this burden." With trembling hands, Isabella accepted the envelope, her heart pounding in her chest as she retreated a few paces. "I need time, Ethan," she whispered, barely audible above the patter of rain. "I need to trust you again." With that, he nodded silently and stepped back into the shadows, leaving Isabella alone beneath the flickering street lamp, the envelope clutched tightly in her grasp. Over the following days, Isabella's inner turmoil continued unabated. Every small kindness from an anonymous benefactor, a discreet payment to cover an overdue bill, a note tucked into her locker, rekindled memories of a simpler time, even as they deepened her sense of betrayal. She immersed herself in her work at the Azure Bistro, determined to ignore the tumult that Ethan's reappearance had stirred in her soul. Yet the echoes of their childhood, a time when laughter and carefree adventures had defined their bond, remained stubbornly vivid. One afternoon, after a particularly long shift, Isabella returned home to find a bouquet of delicate white lilies on her doorstep, accompanied by a handwritten card that read, "I know I made mistakes. Please let me make it right." The sight of her favorite flowers brought tears to her eyes, mingling gratitude with the bittersweet sting of memory. As weeks turned into months, the subtle exchanges between Isabella and Ethan gradually evolved into tentative conversations and cautious smiles. Their encounters, though infrequent, began to weave a fragile thread of hope between them. One evening, when the bistro's lights had dimmed and the last of the patrons had departed, Ethan invited Isabella to join him at a small, secluded cafe that overlooked the rain-washed streets of the French Quarter. The cozy establishment, with its muted tones and soft acoustic melodies, served as the perfect backdrop for a conversation that had long been overdue. "I've been wanting to explain everything," Ethan said, his voice earnest as he poured 2 cups of hot cocoa. "That day in the rain, I realized that life doesn't always give us a second chance. I was too afraid to reveal my true self, afraid that you'd see me differently, that I was wrong. I should have trusted you enough to let you in." Isabella listened in silence, her eyes fixed on the swirling steam above her cup, the memories of their shared past mingling with the weight of the present. "I wasn't angry because you're wealthy," she finally said, her tone soft but resolute. "I was angry because you never trusted me enough to let me decide for myself what I wanted to know." Ethan's gaze dropped, his remorse palpable. "I've spent so many years regretting that moment," he murmured. "And I promise, no more secrets, no more half-truths. I want us to start anew, if you'll let me." That night, beneath the soft glow of the city lights and the lingering drizzle, a fragile truce was forged between them. Though the scars of betrayal had not yet fully healed, there was an unmistakable sense of possibility, a promise that perhaps, together, they could rebuild what had been lost. In the weeks that followed, their interactions became more frequent and intimate. Isabella began to see glimpses of the man she once adored in Ethan's gentle smiles and sincere efforts to ease her burdens, while he, in turn, rediscovered the vibrant soul of the girl who had once inspired him to dream. During a quiet afternoon at the cafe, as they reminisced about childhood adventures in the maze-like alleys of New Orleans, Ethan confided, "Most of my fondest memories are of you, Isabella. I always remember you sharing your lunch with me when I forgot mine, the way you dare me to chase after fireflies in the park, and those lazy summer days when nothing mattered but our laughter." Isabella's eyes softened as she recalled those golden moments, though a shadow of melancholy tempered her smile. "Those were simpler times," she murmured, "when life was about chasing dreams rather than surviving the day-to-day." In time, the raw honesty between them began to thaw the bitterness of the past. Ethan's persistent acts of kindness, though still laden with the awkwardness of his hidden life, gradually opened a small window through which Isabella dared to hope again. One chilly evening, as Isabella finished another taxing shift at the Azure Bistro, she noticed a small package waiting for her on the counter. Inside, she discovered a set of high-quality art supplies and a handwritten note. "I remember how you used to light up when you sketched. Perhaps it's time to let your talent shine again." The gesture stirred something deep within her. A forgotten passion and the desire to reclaim a piece of the self she had long abandoned. Overwhelmed by a mixture of gratitude and trepidation, Isabella began to experiment with drawing once more, allowing her emotions to flow onto paper as freely as the rain outside. Ethan's journey toward redemption was not without its setbacks. At times, the gulf between his glittering, high-stakes world and Isabella's everyday struggles seemed insurmountable. The pressures of managing his vast business empire, with board meetings and strategic deals, often clashed with the quiet vulnerability of their stolen moments. Yet every time he found himself in a position of wealth and influence, he would pause and remember the promise he made to himself that fateful day in the rain, to never let his success define him, and certainly not to let it drive a wedge between them. His heart, once guarded by a lifetime of self-protection, now beat with the hope of a new beginning, a future where their worlds might merge, no longer defined by money or status, but by the unyielding bond of trust and love. One unforgettable evening, as the vibrant hues of the setting sun bathed the city in golden light, Ethan invited Isabella to a private art gallery exhibition in the heart of the French Quarter. Upon arrival, Isabella's breath caught in her throat at the sight before her. The gallery walls were adorned with framed sketches and paintings, artwork that bore an uncanny resemblance to her own early creations, pieces she had long believed were lost to time. "I found them in my apartment," Ethan admitted sheepishly, his eyes avoiding hers for a moment before meeting her gaze again. "I know I shouldn't have, but they were so beautiful. I couldn't help but share them with the world." Isabella's heart fluttered between indignation and astonishment as she took in the sight of her childhood dreams, now celebrated on gallery walls. "You did all this? For me?" she whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. Ethan stepped closer, his tone soft and filled with conviction. "I remember you saying how much you loved art, how it once made you feel alive. I wanted to remind you of that feeling. I even enrolled you in a local art school. If you don't want to, you can say no, but I just thought you deserved the chance to rediscover yourself." Overwhelmed by the unexpected kindness, Isabella's eyes brimmed with tears as she realized that beneath the layers of wealth and carefully crafted facades, Ethan's heart was still tender and true. In the days that followed, Isabella tentatively embraced the opportunity to rekindle her artistic passion. Under the soft guidance of instructors and the gentle encouragement of new friends, she began to sketch again, her talent blossoming with each brushstroke and pencil line. Her renewed vigor for art infused her daily life with a spark that had long been missing, even as the shadow of Ethan's secret past lingered on the fringes of her thoughts. And while their conversations still occasionally veered into difficult territory, the lingering hurt, the delicate dance of forgiveness, the sincerity in Ethan's eyes, and the steady rhythm of their shared memories began to forge a new path forward. One crisp evening, as the couple strolled hand in hand along a tree-lined boulevard, the air cool and fragrant with the scent of magnolias in bloom, Ethan paused and turned to face Isabella. "I've loved you since we were children," he confessed softly, his voice carrying the weight of years lost and moments cherished. "And I promise to keep loving you for the rest of my life, if you'll allow me a chance to start over." Overwhelmed by the sincerity in his words, Isabella's breath caught, her heart pounding in time with the gentle patter of rain on the pavement. "Can we really start over, Ethan?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mixture of hope and apprehension. With a steady gaze and an outstretched hand, he offered her a small, elegant ring, a delicate sapphire encircled by a halo of tiny diamonds. "Yes," she whispered, tears mingling with the rain as she nodded in quiet acceptance. In that tender moment, as the city lights shimmered like distant stars and the storm overhead softened into a gentle drizzle, Isabella felt a warmth spread through her, a promise of renewal and the unyielding belief that love, when nurtured with honesty and hope, could create entirely new beginnings. In the weeks that followed their reconciliation, life took on an unexpected, almost dreamlike quality. Isabella and Ethan worked together to bridge the gap between their vastly different worlds. While Isabella continued her diligent work at the Bistro, she also pursued her passion for art with a fervor that surprised even herself. Ethan, on the other hand, gradually let down the walls that had long shielded him from genuine connection. He spent quiet evenings at home, sketching in a small notebook the memories of their childhood adventures and the dreams they once shared under the sultry skies of New Orleans. Their shared past, marked by days of laughter, whispered secrets, and the innocence of youth, became the foundation upon which they rebuilt their relationship. Every shared glance and gentle touch served as a reminder that beneath the trappings of wealth and the burdens of responsibility, they were still the same two souls who had once found solace in one another's company. Despite the progress they made, challenges were never far behind. Ethan's demanding career occasionally clashed with Isabella's newfound academic pursuits and her commitment to her art. There were days when the weight of their respective worlds seemed almost too heavy to bear. Yet, every obstacle became an opportunity to reaffirm their commitment to each other. Late-night phone calls, whispered conversations in quiet corners of the bistro, and the occasional spontaneous outing to the city's hidden gems. Each moment, no matter how fleeting, served as a reminder that they were willing to fight for the fragile beauty of what they had rekindled. One evening, after a particularly taxing day for Isabella, Ethan surprised her by showing up unannounced at the bistro with a bouquet of wildflowers and a heartfelt note. "You make me feel like myself," he wrote simply. And in that moment, as she read his words, Isabella felt a resurgence of hope, a small, defiant spark that told her perhaps, just perhaps, they could forge a future together that honored both their past and the promise of tomorrow. Their journey together eventually led them to a point where the scars of old wounds began to fade, replaced by the tentative but genuine trust of two hearts slowly learning to beat in unison again. One particularly crisp autumn day, as Isabella and Ethan walked through a park draped in golden leaves, they found themselves reminiscing about a time when the world had seemed full of endless possibilities. "Remember how we used to race across these very lawns, our laughter echoing among the trees?" Isabella recalled, her eyes shining with the brightness of bygone days. Ethan's smile was wistful as he nodded. "Those moments still mean everything to me," he said quietly, his voice full of sincere emotion. "They remind me that even when life seems harsh and unyielding, there's always a chance for renewal, a chance to find beauty in unexpected places." In that moment, as the park enveloped them in its timeless embrace, they both recognized that their love had transformed into something deeper and more resilient than they could have ever imagined. The culmination of their journey came on an evening that felt almost surreal in its magic. Surrounded by close friends and family, Isabella and Ethan stood in a quaint garden lit by twinkling fairy lights and the soft glow of lanterns. Their wedding, an intimate celebration that blended simplicity with understated elegance, was held beneath the sprawling canopy of an ancient oak tree. The same tree under which they had once carved their initials as children. Isabella walked down the aisle in a flowing white gown, her eyes shining with both trepidation and joy, while Ethan awaited her at the altar, his expression a mixture of love, awe, and quiet resolve. "I feel like the luckiest man alive," he whispered as she reached him, his voice imbued with the sincerity of a promise renewed. "And I feel like the luckiest woman," Isabella replied softly, her words carrying the weight of a journey filled with struggle, redemption, and the unyielding power of second chances. Their vows, exchanged beneath the starlit sky, were not merely words, but a solemn pact, a commitment to honor the past while embracing the uncertain beauty of the future. As they danced their first dance to the gentle strains of a string quartet, every movement, every glance, and every whispered word spoke of the resilience of love. "You make forever worth believing in," Ethan murmured as they swayed together, and Isabella, with her heart brimming with a renewed sense of hope, replied, "And you remind me that sometimes the most beautiful endings are simply the start of something new." The celebration that followed was a tapestry of laughter, tears, and heartfelt toasts, each guest a testament to the transformative power of love, of overcoming hardships, and of finding light even in the darkest of times. In the years that followed, Isabella and Ethan devoted themselves not only to each other, but also to a cause that was close to their hearts. Remembering all too well the struggles of their own pasts, they established a scholarship fund in their beloved hometown, aimed at providing financial aid and mentorship to underprivileged students who dared to dream. At local schools, they would share their story of childhood adventures, of harsh realities, and of a love that defied the odds, inspiring countless young minds to believe that no matter how difficult life might seem, hope and determination could light the way forward. "We both know what it's like to struggle," Isabella would say during one of her passionate speeches at a school assembly, "and if we can help even one student find the courage to chase their dreams, then every hardship we endured has been worth it." One crisp celebratory evening at a renowned art exhibit showcasing Isabella's latest collection, a series of poignant pieces that captured the delicate interplay of light and shadow, hope and despair, the couple stood side by side. As guests admired the artwork that so eloquently chronicled her personal journey, Ethan guided her toward a private section of the gallery. There, amid portraits that depicted fragments of their shared history, the bistro where they reconnected, the park bench where they had reconciled, and even a painting of the very street lamp under which they had first spoken again, he knelt before her. Holding a small velvet box in his hand, he spoke with a voice thick with emotion. "Isabella, you brought color back into my life. You've shown me that the beauty of simplicity, the strength of hope, and the joy of love are the truest treasures. Will you marry me?" Overcome with emotion, tears streaming down her face, Isabella whispered, "Yes, but only if you promise to keep being the person I fell in love with, the person who cherishes the past but is brave enough to dream of a brighter future." With that, Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, sealing a promise that was both a testament to their shared past and an embrace of the future they would build together. In the quiet moments that followed, as the night deepened and the gallery emptied, Isabella and Ethan found solace in each other's arms. Their love had weathered storms, both literal and metaphorical, emerging not unscathed, but undeniably stronger. A resilient bond forged from the crucible of hardship, regret, and ultimately, forgiveness. Standing together beneath a canopy of starlight and the soft hum of distant conversation, they knew that while the journey had been arduous, every step had led them to this moment of serene, unyielding connection. Isabella's life, once defined by struggle and the relentless pursuit of survival, had blossomed into a tapestry of art, hope, and community. And Ethan, who had long guarded his heart behind the glittering facade of success, discovered that true wealth lay not in material abundance, but in the raw, unfiltered emotion of genuine connection. Their story, a tale of chance encounters in the rain, of secrets unveiled, and of love rediscovered, reminded all who heard it that life, with all its twists and turns, always held the promise of new beginnings. In that spirit, the legacy of Isabella and Ethan endured. Their scholarship fund, the Bright Horizons Initiative, provided not only financial support, but also a beacon of inspiration for those who believed that even the darkest nights could give way to the soft glow of dawn. At every school visit, every community event, and every heartfelt conversation, they championed the idea that no matter how far life might pull you apart, sometimes it will also bring you back together, stronger and more determined than ever to embrace the future. Their wedding, a delicate blend of simplicity and understated elegance, held beneath the sprawling branches of an ancient oak in a serene garden, was celebrated by those who had witnessed their transformation. Friends and family gathered under the gentle glow of fairy lights, their laughter and tears a testament to the enduring power of love and resilience. As Isabella and Ethan exchanged vows that spoke of forgiveness, hope, and the promise of forever, every word resonated with the truth that love, when nurtured with honesty and the willingness to overcome, could mend even the deepest of wounds. And so, as the years slipped by, Isabella continued to pursue her passion for art, her works now celebrated not just in local galleries, but also in exhibitions far beyond New Orleans. Meanwhile, Ethan balanced the demands of his thriving business with the joy of rediscovering life's simpler pleasures, a quiet morning spent reading, an impromptu walk in the park, or a shared meal at their favorite humble bistro. Their love story, once marred by secrets and fear, had transformed into a beacon of hope for all those who dared to dream of second chances. In every quiet moment, every shared glance, and every tender embrace, Isabella and Ethan reminded each other, and the world, that while life's challenges might sometimes seem insurmountable, true connection and unconditional love had the power to heal, transform, and illuminate even the darkest of days. Their journey was a living testament to the belief that every ending is but the start of a new chapter, and that sometimes the most moving stories are the ones that arise from the courage to trust again, to forgive, and ultimately, to love. As the city of New Orleans carried on beneath the gentle caress of the rain, Isabella and Ethan walked hand in hand, their silhouettes merging with the shimmering reflections of streetlights on wet pavement. The quiet murmur of the crowd and the distant sound of jazz drifting from open doorways served as a constant reminder that life was an ever-evolving tapestry, one woven with threads of joy, sorrow, hope, and endless possibility. And in that tapestry, their love, born of chance encounters and nurtured by forgiveness and perseverance, would forever remain a bright, enduring light. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey of love, resilience, and rediscovery. A story that transcends wealth and hardship to remind us all that sometimes, when life pulls us apart, it also gives us the chance to come back together in ways we never imagined possible.